the best it's ever been. It's the only college football conference, Power 5 conference, that hasn't lost a game yet, and they're completely stacked at quarterback. First of all, I thought Deion Sanders, I've said this multiple times, I thought he would give the program juice and publicity, and Colorado football needs it. So therefore, I thought it was a good hire. But I didn't think they'd be very good this year because I didn't think you could bring in 75% of your program through the transfer portal and be anything other than a bit inefficient and chaotic and mistake prone early. I was shocked at how not well coached. Deion Sanders obviously can coach. We saw that at Jackson State. But for a first game with a 70 to 75% transfer portal team, this isn't the NFL. There's no preseason games. There's no inter-squad practices. These are 20-year-old kids, not 28-year-old NFL players. They were mistake-free, penalty-free, seamless, smooth. Tip of the cap to Deion and that entire coaching staff. I mean, I've watched Brian Kelly, Lincoln Riley bring in 20, 25 transfer portal guys, and it's bumpy and rocky early. Now, TCU's not very good. They put a ton of people in the NFL, lost their starting quarterback, Max Duggan, for multiple years there. So they're not very good. But they did not look buttoned up, and Colorado did. And my other takeaway on this game is that this year in the Pac-12, for people that live out west, this is the best quarterback group we have had maybe since like the Andrew Luck year. There were a couple years there with a lot of good quarterbacks. But Cam Rising, Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, Jaden DeLora at Arizona, and now Shedeur Sanders, Deion's son. I text 2 NFL executives during that Colorado win. And I asked the question, am I nuts? Or do we have another first-round quarterback in the NFL? And both executives said the same thing. His release and his accuracy and touch were A++. Deion Sanders' son is a first-round NFL quarterback. I'm almost sure of it. 6'2", 6'2 and a half. You know, with his dad, he's going to be athletic. Excellent accuracy, tremendous poise, light on his feet, intermediate, out in the flat, deep ball. I thought Shedeur Sanders, I know Deion gets the publicity, and we talk a lot about Colorado football. My takeaway was, wait a minute. Deion's son is a first-round talent. Am I nuts? I was blown away. And again, TCU had a ton of NFL players, and they weren't going to be as good this year. I still thought they would win. I mean, they were a 21-point favorite. But wow. So just think, if you were an NFL fan and you're a maybe college fan, but you need a quarterback, I think Caleb Williams, Drake May. I'm not a huge fan of Quinn Ewers at Texas. I think he's Jay Cutler, arm talent, little sloppy, unrefined. Don't love his game, but he'll go in the first round. I think Jaden Daniels at LSU has some first-round traits. Riley Leonard at Duke is raw, mostly a pocket guy that we can move. He's a big-time talent. And now, Shedeur Sanders. Maybe now, they play Nebraska. So, you know, the hype bubble may get popped. Matt Rule, they're going to go upset hunting. But I first of all, tip of the cap to Colorado. I did not think you could come into a football game with that many transfers and be that smooth. Had they lost, it wouldn't have mattered. I was 7-8 minutes into that game, and they were running no huddle. They were going a million miles an hour. It was really slick. So that's just tremendous coaching. And I didn't think anybody, I mean, their turnover of their roster is without comp. I've never seen anything like that. I figured they'd have skill players, and Deion's son would know the offense. But to build O&D lines in that amount of time through the portal. Now, their D-line at Colorado is not very good, but their O-line, pretty solid. My other takeaway in college football is Ohio State's offensive line and Texas offensive lines were awful. And it's not a matter of talent. I think we have to be totally honest here what's happening to college football, and we've seen it for a decade in college basketball, is that we all know due to the transfer portal and the one-and-done rule in college basketball, you can't really watch Kansas or Duke or Carolina or the top programs and judge them in October and November. It's all new players. Well, in college football, we're a little bit more demanding right out of the gate in September. But the hardest unit for any football team to attain cohesion and chemistry is the offensive line. That's high school, college, or pro. We all know that. You know that. I know that. Everybody knows that. Well, with the transfer portal and youth and players coming from all directions and players leaving early, that even Ohio State and Texas, who are getting 4- and 5-star guys across the front, their offensive lines just aren't ready to go. Now, Texas may have been looking ahead to Alabama, but I thought the Texas O-line, they couldn't initiate a run game. Ohio State's offensive line was a bit of a mess. USC's was awful in week 1, better, but still some holes in week 2. And I think we just have to look at college football a little like we look at college basketball when it comes to especially the O-lines. Just can't judge them in September. Guys leave early. You end up with young guys stepping in that aren't quite ready. So you go to the transfer portal. Offensive lines, even in professional football, they're not great in September. You're praying they're great post-Thanksgiving. So I watched Ohio State and I said, they're just not good enough on the offensive line yet. It's not a lack of talent anywhere. Same with Texas. I like their roster and I like their O-line, but there's it's that we have to look now at O-lines in college football like we do early college basketball. Just give me 6 weeks.
Of NFL quarterbacks, Colin. The Pac-12 is thriving.
Well, it's. I just spent the previous 10 minutes, a large part, talking about Deion Sanders' son. He will be draft eligible. But your takeaway, because he plays with Travis Hunter and his dad's the coach, I thought he was a first round. I mean, I looked at him and I went, oh, we've got another first round quarterback talent. I mean, his accuracy, deep, crossing, underneath, flat, footwork, poise, release. I mean, it was jumped off the television set. But I don't know if he goes pro. Does he?
Shocking Deion Sanders kid is good at football. Who would have thought? Arguably the greatest athlete of my life. Do you know what really jumped out to me, Colin? Just watching that game. I mean, just on the edge of your seat for TCU, Colorado. It felt like as big as an NFL game or whatever.
Yeah.
That's why football is so big. It just felt enormous. These kids, I don't know, 90% of the guys on TCU, and honestly, beside a couple guys on Colorado, you're just kind of learning about it. But prime time against this team that made this run last year, it just doesn't get any better. And then, like you said, that quarterback, we've talked so much, right, about the 49er situation and Trey Lance. And Trey Lance isn't alone. A lot of guys struggle at just lacking poise and just comfortability in the pocket because there are instincts at that position. We love like how 6'5" and he can run and he's got a strong arm, but you can kind of just watch a guy play and you're like, this guy's very comfortable. They were down late and it was like, this guy's not freaking out. He was just playing at Jackson State. That's one of the bigger, I'm not trying to overhype this, but that's as good as it gets, Colin. That was fantastic.
I literally text 2 people in the league and I'm like, am I out of my mind? He is so poised, and his ability, any throw, left, right, moving, his accuracy was insane. And I'm just like, I didn't know. I honestly, over the last month, I went to YouTube. I'm looking up highlights. I mean, I know about the Quinn Ewers, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Bo Nix. I mean, we all know the guys that are going to get drafted. I like Jaden Daniels at LSU. I think he's always been, he was so skinny coming out at Arizona State. He didn't look like an NFL player, but I think he's he's got some real NFL traits. But, I thought, and this is the thing. I love college football, and I feel bummed out that the Pac-12, this may be the best quarterback class in the history of the conference, and the conference is imploding. But I will tell you, as I look at this NFL schedule, I said a minute ago, the trade deadline is going to be terribly, terribly busy. The top, we know who it is. The bottom, we know who it is. You get these Tampas and these Arizonas and these Houstons. If they get off the 1-5 starts, John, this is going to be soft tanks. I mean, these teams need quarterbacks. I think we're going to have a crazy, crazy trade deadline, and players like a Mike Evans at Tampa, who how many teams would be like? I mean, like if Buffalo starts struggling with Stephon Diggs, and it's like